Hey everyone, welcome to another webinar. Great to be here with you. Today really excited. We're going to be talking the holidays. It's July. Why not talk about the holidays? You got to get ready early, and really thrilled to be joined today by Tim McDonald over here, who's from Deliverr. So we're going to be really, between the two of us, really handling kind of two sides of your holiday prep. So around advertising, that'll be myself, for the Teikametrics side, kind of giving perspective there. And then Tim's from the Deliverr side, really going to talk about, okay, fulfillment. What are those things that you want to put in place now that's going to give you the best opportunity to really take the biggest advantage of holiday season, avoid, some of the pitfalls that some folks run into around that time. So we're going to talk through a lot of that. And then, we wrap up, and we'll go into this as part of the agenda with a real clear checklist that kind of you as a seller should go through kind of across your marketplace presence in particular, when it comes to getting yourself set up. So kind of just going through that, making sure you've addressed all those points in advance, well in advance of the holidays, to, again, put your best foot forward. So a couple housekeeping notes before we get started. Everyone here, if you've registered, you're on the call, you're going to get a replay of the webinar, a full video replay that'll be emailed to you roughly 24 to 48 hours following the conclusion here. And you'll also get this full slide deck. So, again, you can review it at your leisure. And additionally, again, that'll all be sent out roughly 24 hours. On the webinar itself, you'll see a little question box, likely, assuming you're using kind of the web client or anything, on the bottom of your screen. At any point during the presentation, a question comes up, feel free to enter it in there. We'll get to as many as we can, again, at the end of the presentation. But you don't have to wait till the end, right? So if something comes up, we say something that you need some clarification on, anything like that, pop in the question, and we'll get to those as we go. So again, thanks so much for joining us, and I think we can go ahead and get started. Just a background on myself: if you haven't been in a webinar before, my name is Andrew Wave. I'm Director of Insights over here at Teikametrics. And Tim, if you want to give yourself a quick introduction here before we get going.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. First off, just appreciate you having me on here. Definitely value the relationship with Teikametrics. So I'm just excited to speak to all of our mutual clients. A little bit about me, as I've been with Deliverr for a little bit shy of 2 years. I've had the great opportunity of being able to kind of expand with the team and hold a few different roles. And just really what I like about that is I'm able to work with many different type of merchants in my experience here. So today, I manage a team of about 10 reps, and what we do is we focus kind of specifically on like direct-to-consumer brands. We're called, of course, like multi-channel fulfillment, so we can help them across all different platforms. But my team in particular is kind of looking for brands who would do a lot of acquisition through advertising into their own personal store. So we definitely work on different types of like custom solutions in terms of the supply chain, different integrations in the tech stack. And then, of course, we just kind of help with the entire onboarding process through implementation. And then often we'll work with our clients for even a month or two after onboarding just to make a smooth transition. So that's our primary focus today.
Great.
Or mine.
Love it. All right, so let's get right into it. So what we're going to cover today. So first is why. Why should you start now? I mean, I think if you're a long-term seller, you've probably gotten in the groove of starting the holiday prep early. But for those that may be newer, it really helps to understand, okay, why do you want to start now versus 3 months from now? And then we get into expectations. So what should you expect, kind of looking in the past and based on our experience when it comes to fulfillment and advertising? What's going to change during that period that you should be aware of? And building off that, what are the issues that you should keep top of mind to avoid and really plan for? Because things change. You're sometimes going to be inevitably run into issues regardless of how much planning, but how do you then adjust and make the changes you need to do to put yourself, again, in the best position to sell? And as I mentioned before, a final kind of a wrap up, but just a checklist of things you should be doing prior to the holidays, and again, as soon as possible, really, to put your business just from a holiday perspective where you've kind of buttoned up as much as you can before we kind of get to that critical period where it's more about just straight up execution and adjusting on the fly. And then we'll wrap up with Q&A. So a quick background for those who haven't heard about Teikametrics before this webinar. So we're a tech platform, and what we do is we pair that, the SaaS platform, along with the team of expert analysts, if you need that extra hands-on keyboard help, to really help you scale across marketplaces. And specifically, right now, we're really focused on Amazon and Walmart. And we have thousands of brands under management. You kind of see some of them here, and really, our system is built around, again, making sure your advertising is geared towards your goals for your products. So whether that's getting exposure for a new product and building up those sales so that you're ranking organically, whether it's maximizing profit, let's say on a more legacy product that's more important for you, these are all going to be really different goals that we can kind of tailor each product, each account to make sure you're getting the most out of it and what your business needs in order to grow. And then hand it over to you, Tim, to talk a little bit about Deliverr.
Cool, thanks. So really high level with Deliverr, we are a direct-to-consumer fulfillment provider who is able to fulfill across multiple channels. The way that we're able to have really low cost fast shipping and enable 2-day delivery on platforms like Walmart is we use a very similar model to FBA, where we have a distributed network of over 70 warehouses. We've been growing a lot lately. And so the way that we work with brands is that we actually have a platform that integrates across all of these different warehouses, and our merchants can tell us what SKUs and how many units that they want to send into our network and have fulfilled. And then we have an algorithm that is actually going to do divide it up and say, according to what you want to send, we recommend these units and SKUs go to these different regions. Kind of typically it's going to be Northeast, Southeast, middle of the country, and West Coast. So simply put, we have low cost fast shipping because we don't send it very far. A few other things about our model is we do flat rate pricing, no zonage or anything else. I think I've already touched on the badging. We're able to identify IP address and thus just how quickly we can fulfill. And if we're unable to fulfill in 2 days or less on, say, Walmart, then we actually will dynamically pull down the tag, be very transparent to the consumer and make sure they know just how fast the speed of delivery is going to be. Last piece really would be that visibility and service. You have an implementation manager who would help you with onboarding and everything else. That would be like the people on my team. And then you also have a dashboard where you can go and see what's going on with my inventory, how are my orders being processed, where are the different warehouses we have it. So a lot of visibility in terms of our internal software platform. Yeah, and so then just to touch on it really quickly, like what is it that we do? What do we specialize and focus on? Direct-to-consumer fulfillment. That's really our big emphasis. And specifically our value add, or why merchants use us, is because we're able to enable Prime-like delivery, 2-day, next day delivery across multiple different platforms. And what this does, as you can see here, is it increases conversion and drives more revenue by promoting and offering fast shipping.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, around fast shipping, and Walmart has come out with these stats. I see something here, but there really is a relationship in terms of your ability to drive higher conversion rates with that fast shipping, and they've done stats on this. So definitely, I mean, worth investigating if you don't have a system in place.
Yeah, and I just think, sorry, I was just going to say, naturally, I think why our two organizations are such good partners is because advertising and including fast shipping in those advertisements are going to give you like more bang for your buck, essentially. So just making advertising campaigns even more strategic and beneficial.
Absolutely. All right, so why to prepare for the holidays now? And so first we'll kind of touch on the advertising portion, and then I'll pass it over to Tim to more talk about fulfillment. We're going to do this throughout the presentation, so it's more you kind of think about these two buckets. And a lot of these there are interrelations between these two, but again, kind of splitting it up so it's easy for you to kind of think advertising versus fulfillment. So first this is more from a listing point of view, but it's something really to think about, especially if you, again, to Tim's point, if you've got a D2C site, do you have consistency when it comes to how your products are presented on Amazon or otherwise, or Walmart as the case may be, right? When someone sees, right, we know that the journey, a customer's journey, is going to be across, in most cases, multiple sites before they make a purchase, before they actually make that purchase. Are they going to see consistent messaging, consistent visuals, that consistent identity when they see your products let's say potentially across multiple platforms. Having that that retail readiness is super important. I mean, we find these are stats that we'd seen from a company called Salsify, and these are stats that I helped pull back when I was there a few years ago, but they're consistent now, where products that are amongst the top sellers, and this is across every category, across every price point, tended to have more images, tended to have longer descriptions, et cetera. So that richest of content, and you be able to have that good retail readiness. You're taking advantage of what Amazon or Walmart is giving you from, let's say, an enhanced content point of view, is really, really important. It puts yourself in the best position to convert consumers when they actually make it to your page. So your advertising is more effective. Like, what you don't want is if you're just throwing money at advertising, but you've only got one image on there and you kind of didn't put too much thought into your listing, or right, alternatively, hey, I've got this great experience on my D2C site, but when they come to Amazon, it's like very bare bones. You want to try to make those as close to each other as possible, so that when a consumer, again, goes through that journey, they feel confident in that product, they're going to make that purchase. And second is more on the budgetary side. Do you understand okay, are you launching any products during this period of time? Are you not? Are you thinking about running any deals, and really have a good accounting about what those are going to be? Now, we'll talk a little bit more about how to think about ad budgets, but generally, a lot of it is setting those guardrails so that you can capture as many profitable sales as possible, and not run into budgetary constraints. Because what we've seen, and this is especially true post-pandemic, is that just overall activity on these sites is obviously very, very high, which means the potential number of sales you get is significantly higher. So if you go with the same budget that maybe you did 3-4 years ago, you're likely selling yourself short because you're not really reflecting all that increase in activity. And you don't want to, again, seed ground your competitors. If you run out of budget, for your kind of Black Friday through Cyber Monday, you run out on Saturday, or you're running low and you're going to have to pare down, it puts yourself in a bad position. So just keep aware of what's that budget going to take, and be cognizant of the fact that it's likely going to be a bigger potential opportunity this year from a volume perspective. The third one is super important. Again, this relates to advertising, is buy box issues. This is something that we've seen come up a lot, especially during high traffic periods, because you have, again, depending on how big your brand is, how popular the brand is, more actors who maybe say, okay, I'm going to resell products. There might be other folks that, again, so this could be, again, within your reseller agreement, but understand how are you winning the buy box now, which obviously is super important, but then additionally, what are the steps you can take to mitigate buy box issues? Now, whether that's going after bad actors, that's a little bit of a longer process, but do you have the ability to adjust your price, to put yourself in the best position? Because if you're not winning the buy box, your ads are not showing up. So be aware. It's like, okay, can I put myself in a position where I can change? If I need to change the price, I'm going to be aware of how to track this and make sure I'm winning the buy box, and then making those adjustments. Because what you don't want is, right, where you lose a day or two of this. That can be enough where, okay, your advertising wasn't running, and now suddenly your holiday sales in aggregate have really taken a big hit. And undercutting all of this, right, is, do you have the supply? And this is obviously a thorny question, I think, now with some of the supply chain challenges a lot of folks are having, coming from China or otherwise. But do you have that supply on hand to handle that purchase volume? And if you don't, think about how that should impact your overall strategy. If you were going to go full bore with advertising, but your supply chain is at a point where it's going to be really hard to meet that demand, you should really rethink that. Because what you don't want, and we'll talk about this later, in out of stock is, as many of you know, really, really bad. And we know how bad it is on Amazon, where in out of stock, even for a matter of hours, can impact your organic ranking for months. So, I mean, and Walmart is going to be something similar from an algorithmic point of view. So understand what you're looking at it from a supply chain perspective, and make adjustments to be realistic. I mean, you got to be realistic. You don't want to put yourself in a bad position, whether from a promotion point of view, from an advertising point of view, where you're committing dollars to something that's again, going to impact you months from now, not just on the sale event. So with that, let's good transition over to the fulfillment side. So Tim, back over to you.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it. And so, yeah, I mean, I would almost piggyback off of, I think that, what we learned last year, particularly from like, the COVID pandemic and what's going on now is it's really like a big game of, supply and demand, much bigger market out there, but much more difficult sometimes or more expensive to get products in. And so from the supply chain element, I think a few things that I would make a recommendation for all merchants to think about heading into this Q4. First and foremost is really have like contingency plans, have redundancies in your network and the ability to efficiently manage inventory and understand, where is it at today? Where can I fulfill it? Like, what would be the process in order to fulfill for my multiple different redundancies? So one example I like to throw out there in terms of like a holistic supply chain solution, obviously it's going to include Deliverr as part of it. So just a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge ahead of that. But the way that I would look at it is you definitely want to have some type of 3PL or home base that is going to provide a few things for you, namely wholesale ability, so moving pallets, and that could even be moving pallets into a direct consumer solution like FBA or Deliverr. The more custom type of orders, I'm sure everyone's familiar with like FBA and hopefully Deliverr in the sense that what we do best is direct to consumer and we focus on low cost fast shipping. So as a way to do low cost fast shipping, there's not going to be a lot of high touch or customization as a part of that supply chain. And then the last thing is you use an FBA to really optimize Amazon. That's the biggest and best and a great option to fulfill there, of course, and then you get the Prime badge and everything else. But then Deliverr can enable one other consolidated stock to sell across all of your other platforms and get the Prime badge with it. Of course, if there's, any issues with any of these supply chains, you always have another one to fall back on. So like, let's say, that your 3PL is, not able to fulfill some of those other orders, you could still get it out through Deliverr. You may not be able to have all the same bells and whistles, but it's there. Same thing with, with Deliverr. Let's say that you're sending the product in and, it's, not able to be fulfilled as quickly from a certain region at that time, you can always fall back on a 3PL or even MCFBA from Amazon. On the flip side, with FBA, if there's a long time to get it in or there's product quantity restrictions, you can use Deliverr to fulfill FBM. So it's sort of like everywhere you look, you need to have a redundancy or the ability to pivot and make sure that you have happy customers and you're getting that product out ASAP.
Yeah, and just to jump in there because I think it's important, right? That those FBA changes. I mean, I'm sure a lot of sellers know, like looking at FBA and what your ability is to take advantage of that as a seller is so much more restrictive now than it was 2 years ago. And well, like I think there was some thought, oh, well, maybe this is just temporary with the pandemic. I mean, the fact that the longer that these restrictions have kind of been along is it's probably going to be like this is the new baseline and it's more restrictive. So it's really even more important to have these backups for fulfillment because it's just the FBA is not as reliable as it was again 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah, and exactly. I don't think it ever will be. I think even outside of holiday, really, I think people have been or they should be thinking about what is my contingency, what is my backup, specifically for Amazon being the #1 channel and FBA having these new types of restrictions. Like you need to have some type of backup to keep your business running and revenue flowing. Some other things I'll be mindful of, and I think this actually comes right off of like we're at a new normal now. And so holiday carrier surcharges, we saw those last year and some of them were very, very steep. Adding $1, $2, $3 to every order, that right there could destroy your margins on a lot of products depending on what they're selling for. So again, a little throughout the Deliverr, last year we were able to mitigate a lot of the carrier surcharges. And so our merchants only saw a 23-cent increase across the board, which again is much, a fraction of what we were seeing for other direct carriers if that's what you were using. So a little bit more protection also with our flat rate across anywhere that you're fulfilling. Last thing is I would start moving inventory. Honestly, if I was a merchant, I'd be building up right now. Especially for a lot of these different 3PLs, Deliverr included. Like a lot of people are going to try to get in, like going into October and everything. So I would just say, be proactive, start getting product in and built up right now. And that way you're not going to have all that stress at like the 10th hour. You'll be able to focus on, say, your advertising strategy and other things rather than just trying to push through inventory. you want to have that set up so you can focus on, you know, building your business from there, really.
Yeah, great point. Getting in before the rush comes. Okay, so more around expectations. So Tim, back to you kind of to talk more, and I think this builds on some of those surcharges that you're talking. Let's kind of put some numbers behind it on what those even look like from an aggregate level.
Exactly. And so like right here, you can kind of going back to what we saw in terms of Deliverr, it was a 23-cent increase during Q4. So when you compare it to some of those other options, it's going to save you. It could potentially save your business, you know, quite a bit of profit, and kind of give you that opportunity and protection ultimately. You might notice a lot of this is really about protection. It's about redundancy. It's about having contingency plans and making sure that you kind of have something, again, that you're not going to have to pivot at the very last second and be like, I don't know what to do. And so this is a great way to kind of make sure you're smooth and you can focus on, you know, driving more conversion, driving more people to your listings. And then, yeah, I think the one last thing I would, you know, expect in terms of fulfillment is that you are going to see reduced speed, lower on-time delivery. And so, you know, I would start thinking about some type of customer service like plan. Like, what are you going to do when you have a lot of people that, you know, bought a product and they want to give it as a gift and they're following up with you and they're like, well, you know, I thought I was gonna, you know, get it at XYZ date. You know, First Deliverr is really good at targeting based on IP address and where they're at. We're really good at saying like, this is when you're actually going to get it. And we have a very high OTD, especially in comparison to the market. But, you know, with the carrier environment and just what's going on and some of the unpredictability about, you know, what's going on out there, I think that should be an expectation. And if you want to have happy customers, like start planning for that as well now.
Yeah, great point. And I mean, so moving to advertising, you know, no surprise, right? You should expect overall volume across every marketplace you sell to skyrocket. And but given that, there's also, right, what we find consistently is that usually during these sale events, while search volume is going up, there's more customers coming to these sites. Advertiser demand usually keeps up or even exceeds that, so that you see the advertising costs subsequently rise. So yes, there's more users, which if there was just more users but the same number of advertisers, right, those costs per click would go down. But because you have more advertiser activity, you see those CPCs rise. The flip side of that, though, is that you typically see conversion rates, right, rise from pre-holiday levels. So those what you were expecting kind of from a expected revenue given a click, that's going to go up as well because you see those conversion rates go up. And this is advertising especially. Consumers, and we see this consistently, this is across Amazon, across Walmart, those first spots on the search page capture usually a plurality of conversions, where when you look across the top 10,000 terms on Amazon, using this as an example, it's a near majority of conversions, it's just organic, that are captured by the top 3 organic results. And so if you can use that as a proxy to think about the importance of advertising, consumers trust Amazon, trust Walmart to put the most relevant products at the top of the search page. So you having, again, you know, your ability to get your product placed there and conversion rates are rising, there's much more potential there to drive overall revenue growth. So really just keeping that in in focus. It's like, this is what you want, even if the prices are going to rise up. Keep your margins in mind, keep your goals in mind, right? There may be opportunities, let's say if your product is new, where you need to really cut your margins, to drive overall volume, but it's worth it again for the long-term prognosis of that product, because you've driven that volume. That'll tell Amazon, tell Walmart, consumers like this product, they convert on it, even on ads, that impacts your organic ranking. So keep that in mind when in context of each of your product's goals. And I'll go into this a little bit, but we're seeing more advertisers leveraging seeded audiences. So using things like Amazon DSP as an example to seed audiences before the event. So get their product in front, using DSP both on Amazon and off Amazon, finding those audiences and then using them for subsequent retargeting or other targeting during the prime holiday season. Which, unlike Prime Day, which is very, very limited, the holiday shopping season is very long. So it helps to have these seeded audiences, which you're not hitting just on Amazon. You can hit them off Amazon. You're having, there's a longer purchase decision-making period these folks have to do in this critical time frame. So your ability to leverage those audiences, again, like, DSP is something where if you just work with Amazon, that's a 35K minimum. You work with someone like us, we can take that minimum down pretty considerably. If you're looking for this, but we're definitely seeing a lot more advertisers take advantage of this. I mean, Amazon's DSP has gotten a lot more mature, especially over the past year or 2 years. So you're seeing more and more advertisers take advantage of this, which has a real impact. We're seeing really good results out of it. Similarly, on the kind of targeting front, PAT targeting, product attribute targeting, the inventory that this opens up for you, and the ability to target, again, based on whether it's you can target your products, that your ad shows up on your product pages, but let's say with a companion product. So let's say you have, there's a starter and you have, let's say, an add-on, you can have that one that takes it away potentially from a competitor coming and getting those ad slots on your PDP or the checkout page. Or, right, you can target competitors with this. Again, using product attribute targeting, we're seeing a lot of great results out of this. It's definitely something to look into, and be aware your competitors are likely using this. So it behooves you kind of, as it's something that's worth at least investigating, maybe trying it out a little bit now, get used to it, and so then you can really execute, find out what's working best for you, what products are working well in that scenario, and then leveraging that to a higher degree during the holiday season itself. And to kind of bring home the idea of like seeded audiences in this length of time. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, everyone pays attention to. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it's the biggest thing. A lot of categories, those aren't even the biggest days during the holiday season. So what you see here, this is from when we looked at this past holiday season. So what you see here is every line, it's on a given category, what we saw from a search volume perspective. And that 100% marker is where search volume for that category peaked during this 2-month stretch. And what you see is, yes, for certain categories, for example, like electronics, that peaked right on like Black Friday, right? That's a big time. But you see others, as an example, like clothing, shoes, and jewelry, and beauty and personal care, those peaked a lot later. We're actually like the top search volumes were actually seen kind of in mid-December. So this is why it's important when you're using something like an Amazon DSP as an example. You can really leverage those audiences a lot, after you maybe they shop a little bit on Black Friday, they see your product, they viewed it, they didn't buy it. You have the opportunity to convert them later, and there really is volume there. It's not a make or break during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. There's a very long length of time where overall search volume remains really, really high, and for some categories even higher than it was during that period. And that's when you can make hay, using these seeded audiences, being cognizant of the fact that this behavior is kind of manifesting itself on Amazon and otherwise, right? You can take this and use this as a proxy for Walmart. Consumers on these larger marketplaces are going to behave relatively similarly, not exactly so, but you can use this as a means to say, okay, on Walmart, I'm going to try a similar kind of strategy. I mean, it's something that we talk about. If you're moving to, let's say, to Walmart, you sold on Amazon, you're selling successfully, at least initially, take the keywords that you know are performing well on Amazon, move them over to Walmart and test out there. I mean, again, you're not going to see complete overlapping, but it's likely a good guide, a good starting place to then test, see how your performance is doing, and then adjust accordingly. Okay, so let's get into the issues that you may see and kind of avoiding. So on advertising, I think you can't run the same playbook. You can't run the same playbook you ran last year. You can't run the same playbook you did 2 years ago. Shopping behavior has changed really considerably, both from a volume perspective and then even how folks are searching and what they're searching for. Certain products that, let's say, were seasonal and you could really count on, okay, this is the time when people buy them. Sometimes those buying patterns have been stretched out over longer periods of time because people are home, they're shopping over a longer period of time. And similarly means that has downstream impacts on the advertising market, where things that you would expect, oh, this is going to be the perfect time to advertise, well, the volume's not there, so then the cost goes up considerably, and you may not be ready for that. So it's important, again, seeding audiences, as we talked about before. That's a good tactic because you can kind of get a better idea about what your customers are looking like, right? Are they searching in higher volumes early? Can you then retarget them later with essentially in better context based on what they've looked at previously? And additionally, we really are proponents of using automatic campaigns to seed your manual campaigns. and we tested this scientifically. Any keyword that is in an automatic campaign that's performing well for you, it performs better in a manual campaign. So pay attention as you're kind of spinning up automatic campaigns now, finding keywords that are maybe you didn't even think they were something that you intrinsically thought were great for your product, but you're seeing good conversion volume vis-a-vis those other keywords, and you're seeing good conversion rates. Those are ones you'll want to move into manual campaigns and kind of use that feeder system for each product that you sell. And I mean, this is something that at Teikametrics, we do some of this automatically based on kind of parameters you set, but it's really a great way, again, to take advantage of keywords that, again, you yourself may not be aware of. It may be based on trends that are, let's say, happening on social media that are then trickling down into how people search. You need to be able to take advantage of these as quickly as you're kind of seeing this, seeing that activity rise, and particularly conversion volume and conversion rate are the metrics you want to watch here. When it comes to newer products, you can't be timid. I mean, we've talked about this a couple times on prior webinars, but newer products, because you don't have that sales history, you are essentially not going to rank organically on any kind of major keyword that's not branded, as it were. And right, the biggest volume are going to be these generic keywords, right? So your category level, et cetera. So for newer products, especially if you're launching them during the holiday season, be very aggressive, and be at least very aggressive on pick a small basket of keywords that you know are going to drive significant volume in aggregate. And if you feel you have a great product, that's when you want to hit those so you can drive volume, hopefully maybe get some reviews in advance of the holiday season a little bit, so that when you hit the holiday season, you have a deep understanding about what your expected costs are likely going to be, and you've got that history to keep converting customers as you go. So get aggressive. You don't want to be too timid, because it's just going to have this knock-on effect where then 3 months, you're going to wish that you've been more aggressive, because you could have gotten that good volume during the holidays that can sustain you for months and months. Budget. During the holidays, we really encourage, especially during the holidays, to our sellers to think about uncapping their budgets. Now, you want to have this with guardrails, right? So what our system allows you to do, but you can do this with others, right, is set, okay, you've got your maximum net cost of sale based on the margins you're looking to drive or the goal you're looking to drive, and amping that up, obviously, roughly by 20%, given the holidays. But you have those max guardrails in there so that if the price does go above that, right, you're not bidding and then potentially converting an unprofitable sale or something that goes beyond what you're comfortable with from a margin perspective. So, but at the same time, right, you want to capture those sales if they are profitable, if they are going to deliver on the goal that you set for that product. So uncapping budgets is a great way that if volume exceeds your wildest dreams, you're not then stepping back and now a competitor comes in and is capturing sales while you've had to take a break. So, if you can get that in place, what your profitability margins are, put those guardrails in, you can uncap budgets. And then we talked about this earlier, running out of stock. It's really imperative, pause down ads well before, if you see that trend happening, pause down ads before it happens. Because obviously now if you're out of stock, the ads will not appear, but you don't want to get to a point where you're advertising and now suddenly you went from, you got a couple hundred and now you got 0, and now you're out of stock, your organic ranking's getting hit. So understand when you're trending in that direction and pull back from ads just to avoid that type of situation before you get those bad downstream impacts. And we talked about the cost of holiday advertising. This is from last year. We looked at, okay, what was the cost during Cyber Week across these different verticals in aggregate versus the week prior, and how did that change in 2020 versus 2019, again, Cyber Week versus the week prior. And what you found was that it varied. In some categories, it was much higher. There's a higher jump in 2019 than 2020. In toys and games, it was significantly higher in 2020. So keep in mind, the increases are going to be there. You can kind of see that CPCs, they went up by a pretty significant level, but just understand that there's going to be some you're going to need to track this, because this is not a one size fits all, and it's not something that's very consistent from year to year, depending on, again, how consumers, their behavior is changing. This is something to really keep an eye on, that track this as you go and put some expectations in, and then as we hit the holiday season, keep looking at it, make adjustments in terms of win rates, et cetera, so that you're actually getting the volume you're looking for at the price that you're comfortable. Tim, go
You
ahead
know,
and take
Andrew,
the fulfillment side.
kind of a little bit laughing to myself about the seeded audiences because it's so true, and I know it's worked on me. It's kind of like I even think about it from a like sales perspective. Obviously, because that's my experience, where it's like you need to have 3 no's before a yes. I can't tell you how many times I like looked at a product, left, and then I'm like, how do they keep following me everywhere? And then like a few times later, I'm like, all right, I'll buy it. So I could totally see how that works from personal perspective. But anyhow, with fulfillment, some things that I would sort of like echo in terms of what sellers really need to avoid. I think the first one, and it kind of goes hand in hand with building redundancy into a supply chain, is if you have everything consolidated into just a few locations, that really opens you up for potential pitfalls in Q4. It could be that the communication with a specific warehouse you're using is sort of like broken, or maybe that they had some like labor things, or the person that was managing the communication is like temporarily unavailable. Or as we saw last year, I think carriers like FedEx, they were essentially doing pickup limits. And so in those instances, they may even be processing and getting your order set up in time, but if it's coming out of one location and they have a limit, it could be that your order just like doesn't make it on the truck. And so that can obviously like slow it down, cause more customer complaints. And so really making sure you have many different options and you can pivot to different sort of fulfillment locations or providers, which is super, super important, something I would make sure to avoid. The other thing is sending inventory too late. If you wait until October 15th or something like that, there's going to be bigger delays. Like everybody is going to be trying to get in at that time. It's kind of like the old, adage where it's like early bird gets the worm. That's very true. Like getting product in now means it's going to be set up. If you wait, you're opening yourself up to unpredictability. So making sure that I would really start looking at like your inbounding plans, getting products, into the US and into a network like immediately, especially going into August even. The other thing is not offering free and fast shipping. One of the things we saw last year, and something that a lot of our brands and merchants, commented to us on, is that we actually extended their holiday selling season because we were able to accurately predict and promote and offer free fast shipping. So for all those people that are waiting to buy certain products or they forgot about it, instead of being like, well, we have to do slow shipping because we're coming out of this one location and they're very backed up and we have to send it all the way across the country, well, then the cutoff then is probably going to be December 15th or even sooner. Whereas if you're able to dynamically place product A all over the place and promote speed of delivery, maybe you're going to get someone who places an order on the 18th, 19th, 20th. You get several extra selling days during the most important time of year. So that could be a lot of revenue you're leaving on the table if you're not able to offer those speeds and the compelling rate. Last thing is just, like you had said, like it keeps growing. There keeps being, more people online and purchasing. And so there's a bigger market. And so there's a bigger opportunity for all the merchants. I wouldn't sell yourself short for a lot of the reasons you mentioned in terms of advertising, but just in general, like, having more product on hand because there are more buyers is just a way to generate more revenue for your business ultimately.
Great. So let's get into this checklist that we talked about. So we're going to, again, go through the advertising portion quickly, and then we'll go through the fulfillment, then we'll get Q&A right after. So from a advertising point of view, right, we just showed that graph, really try to get an understanding of the expected cost of your advertising for your key products over the holidays. So as you look at, okay, what's been your CPC in the past, and maybe you also had experience with the holidays in terms of what that jump looks like. Okay, take that jump as a baseline, and maybe you also want to add, again, from a percentage point of view, maybe 10% on, just to be on the conservative side, but like think of that as your expected cost, and really try to do this again on your key products, especially the ones where you're going to see this is where I'm going to probably put my foot on the gas the most. Is try to get a handle on that as much as you can, so you can set that budget. You need to set a budget, at least have like, okay, this is generally what we expect to spend. That's going to be a good way of going about it. Like look back and then just expect some increase. And when you pick products to run promotions. We know promotions work. We saw this over the course of Prime Day as an example. Not to say, right, if you don't promote your product, right, that product could still have a great holiday from a sales perspective, but we do see promoted items, whether lightning deals, et cetera, like those tend to have a bigger revenue increase than products that don't. And we've seen this across the past couple of Prime Days as an example. But for those products that you want to run promotions on, really, it's worth focusing not on your most popular items, but really on, not necessarily popular items, but definitely on your newer or higher margin items. Like this is a time where if you're going to promote, try to get the most bang for your buck, which is if your most popular product is not, let's say your most higher margin product, it's not new, you know, you may still want to advertise that, but from a like hardcore promotion point of view, when it comes to like lightning deals, et cetera, or coupons, really you want to try to focus on these higher margin or newer items. It's going to give you more bang for your buck versus products that are already popular, already driving. So when you're calculating kind of your desired margins for each product, really, okay, obviously factor in promotions and then set your max. And right, as I mentioned, kind of think about 20%-ish over maybe what that was in the pre-holiday period as kind of a general baseline. Again, use your own, if you can look back at what this kind of looked like in last year's, you can use this, you know, contextualize based on your business. It tends to be, we tend to say, hey, like raise it by 20%, so that way you're giving yourself a better opportunity given the increase in price. But that's just something to plan for. Product attribute targeting. We talked about this, but okay, what's your plan there? Do you want to do, let's say, do you want to target your own products with, let's say, higher margin or companion products, so that A, you're taking that space away from competitors, so that you're placing on your own PDPs, you're placing on checkout pages, or do you want to identify competitors? Those will likely be higher price, but right, a naturally incremental sale if you capture it, right? So what are those products you want to target, identify them, get them nailed down now, and maybe start testing them. You can see how well they perform, and then you can put your foot on the gas much more forcefully when we get to that the peak season. And talked about this before, but what's your process for moving keywords from an automatic campaign into a manual campaign when you see those good results? We can do this again within our system kind of automatically based on, you know, criteria you set, but regardless of what you use, you need to have this at the ready and ready to go, because right, it was talked about, this is a longer period, right? This is a month. You need to be able to, as things are happening, make those adjustments so you're getting the most out of it. And we know moving a keyword from an automatic to a manual campaign results in better, you know, better performance. So have that system in place, be able to do that as those metrics dictate. And Tim, over to you for more fulfillment side.
Cool, thanks. So in terms of, you know, what merchants should be doing to get prepared for this holiday season, you know, I think the first thing is start forecasting early. I imagine a lot of merchants are already beginning to do this, or, you know, midway through the process, but I would start forecasting, you know, looking at your different providers and, you know, setting the expectations across all of them, and really communicating so you understand one another. You know, it's a business partnership, and so, you know, understanding like what their capacity is going to look like, what your expectations and your outbound or even storage volumes are going to look like is extremely important, and it's going to allow your whole holiday season to move a lot smoother from a logistics standpoint. If you have an opportunity, you know, I would start testing them right now. You know, with Deliverr, we have no contracts, no commitments, and so, you know, one of the things a lot of our partners are doing is sort of like dipping their toe in the water. You know, particularly here in July and August, they're sending, you know, some of their high volume SKUs, you know, testing out the inbound and the onboarding process, and just understanding what is it like to work with Deliverr? What are some of the things in which, you know, we need to be mindful of, so that when it does come to, you know, Q4, everything's ready to go. You already have those expectations, and you had a chance to test it out. So I think that's actually a big strength of what we're able to offer, is like, hey, let's make sure that we have everything ironed out so that we're going to have a really mutually beneficial, you know, Q4, and it's going to go as smoothly as possible. Along those lines, figuring out what are those other options. You know, again, testing out different 3PL partners can tell you, who would I be able to pivot to in a real time of need? Along those lines, nurturing your relationships. I think that I value every single customer that we have here at Deliverr. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that there are some people that I just have a really close relationship. I would say almost on like a personal level. And those are the types of merchants who, when they reach out and they really need something, like there's a personal connection. And I actually feel like, like a compulsion, or I feel compelled to really help them. So, if you're able to really have a business partner like that, or I guess like, if you build that relationship, it's going to pay dividends in the end. So last one, I think if I was to just encapsulate it all, is be prepared. Build some mechanisms, be able to pivot, be agile, have relationships with like a supply chain partner where everything is dependent on speed. You have products all over the country. Being able to understand your flow, your contingencies, being able to again pivot is, I think, what's going to kind of separate the merchants who have an excellent Q4 from those who maybe just have like a good one. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we can get to Q&A. So we have roughly 15 minutes. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in now. I think the first one is from Kathy here. What's the best way to handle items that the seller wants to sell out and then discontinue an item? Does that out of stock inventory work against you? Do you delete it soon enough? Does it show out of stock and therefore okay? I think what you're asking here, Kathy, and is right. Okay, let's say it's an item that's being discontinued, so you want to sell it out. I mean, in that sense, it's gonna as far as what we've seen is in terms of the out of stocks impact on search, it's more related to that product rather than something that fans out over an account. So, I'd say if this is a product that you intend to sell out of, in that like it's being deprecated and you're looking to get rid of it, in that sense, well, if you want to sell it out, you can aim to liquidate it. Like that's okay. And in that sense, the sellout won't hurt you on other products. So I would say that's a rule of thumb. That it's like if don't feel that, oh well, I don't want to sell out on this product because it's going to impact me on my other products I do want to sell. If you need to liquidate it. Just be aware it's going to hurt that product. But in that sense, if you want to get rid of it and you're looking to get sell out of everything, in that sense, the any potential impact on search rank rate doesn't really matter for that sense. So and I'd say just generally deleting ASINs is generally not good. Even if an ASIN is, even if it's deprecated and you've gone out of stock of it because it's being discontinued, but it was popular, keep in mind that the way Amazon works is not necessarily on Amazon, right? Amazon pages are reflected on Google, et cetera. And if you don't delete a page, you're still getting some of that juice other places from that search rank. So we typically say if you have, let's say, a newer product, you want to potentially obviously promote that one on, let's say, like brand terms associated with that older product, push people to that newer product, but don't delete ASINs. It tends to not be beneficial on the whole. So think hard about that. I mean, in some cases it needs to happen because of other considerations, but just try to refrain from deleting ASINs. It tends to be a good rule. So this is one from Ebony. What about handmade products? I don't have any, let's say, like hardcore experience in terms of like specialized strategies around these from an advertising perspective. I'd say obviously you just want to be careful with the amount of supply you have on hand and what you plan. I think that's going to be paramount. Is like, okay, what's realistic in terms of your ability to get that out there and service demand. Assuming these are more, these take longer to produce, whether through yourself or whoever you're working with. I mean, I don't know, Tim, have you worked with anyone with kind of these more like specialized, like niche products and kind of how they've thought about fulfillment?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of going along with what you were saying in terms of like speed of production and probably like the quantity of inventory, you know, if it's something that's just being kind of traditionally manufactured, obviously going to be a lot more of them. And I would say Deliverr could be like, you know, a good solution, have good rates that are, you know, flat and be able to offer fast shipping. But I think it would ultimately really come down to like, yeah, the amount of inventory you have. Are there typically with custom items, like, are there any other types of like very custom packaging, inserts? Like, I think usually for like a custom item, and I'm honestly thinking about, I bought like a leather quiver recently, and I got it off of like Etsy. And that's one of those things where it was very much about like that whole experience with that particular product that someone obviously spent a lot of time, you know, creating. So I think, you know, I don't know if that would be the greatest fit for Deliverr. I'd also like, you know, I'd wonder what would be some of the marketplaces that might be sold on. I think I personally bought mine off of like Etsy and stuff, so I imagine that even might be a little bit of a different strategy. So, you know, it could be a fit, but I think, you know, what a good option might also be there would be, you know, just essentially developing a carrier account, seeing if you could self-fulfill. Obviously, I would love to have the conversation, understand more about the product, but initially that's my thought, is maybe kind of figure out some type of self-fulfillment, so it could be very high touch for sure.
Yeah, that's a great point. Cool. Well, I think we got all the questions, so we can probably end just a little bit early today. But again, to reiterate, you're going to get a replay of this whole webinar, video replay, along with the slide deck, so you can kind of look through it. You know, take that checklist and kind of go through that process yourself. You'll get that roughly 24 hours from now. But thanks everyone for hopping on the webinar. I'd say encourage you to tune in. We're going to be doing one next week live at Prosper if you're going to be there, or we're doing it obviously live streaming it as well. And if you're interested in kind of just generally seeing Teikametrics, what we're putting out, along with kind of general tips from a winning at marketplaces, we have a page one newsletter. You can kind of look at our website, sign up there. It's once a week, but just some good tips that you can get obviously outside of these webinars. But anyway, so thanks so much, Tim, for hopping on. This was terrific, and thank you all for hopping on as well, and hope to see you all again soon.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Andrew. Bye.